So right now, there is this neurological code spreading across global dance floors. It basically bypasses your conscious brain, taps directly into your motor cortex, and literally forces you to move before you even realize a song is playing.
Yeah, it really does.
And the wildest part to me is that it wasn't engineered in some, you know, billion-dollar Silicon Valley lab,
Hmm.
and it didn't come from a massive Los Angeles recording studio where executives run all these focus groups to figure out what goes viral. It came from South African townships.
Right, which is just incredible.
Yeah, and it's not a new app or a tech device. It is literally a genre of music.
I mean, it totally shatters this assumption we have that to achieve a massive behavioral impact, to literally get the whole world addicted to a sound that you need deliberate, highly funded engineering.
Right, like an evil genius in a lab.
Exactly. We tend to think you need top-down calculation by people in expensive suits. But the reality of how this music manipulates human biology is just entirely organic.
So today, we are doing a deep dive into a really fascinating collection of musical analysis and neuroscientific notes focused entirely on Amapiano. And for you listening, you might have heard Amapiano and just thought it was another dance trend, right?
Just the flavor of the month on social media.
Exactly. You hear the slow house beats, the heavy bass, the jazzy piano loops, and you think it's just a TikTok thing. But our mission today is to pull back the curtain on those notes. We want to figure out not just what this genre sounds like, but the hidden psychology behind it.
Yeah, we're looking at why the human brain becomes completely literally addicted to it.
Right, because when you read how neuroscientists and music psychologists describe this music, they're not talking about it like casual clubgoers.
Not at all. They analyze Amapiano as this highly unusual combination of rhythmic patterns that are constantly manipulating our neurological expectations.
It's just wild.
It is. It manages to feel completely predictable and deeply surprising at the exact same moment. And that is an incredibly rare state for the human brain to be in.
So I want to break down that concept of expectation a bit, because to understand how this music hacks the brain, we first have to look at how our brains process time in general. My understanding from the sources is that the brain is essentially just a giant prediction machine.
That is the core of it, yeah. Just think about how you process everyday reality. Like, if you were sitting in a room and you hear someone walking down a hardwood hallway, step, 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 your brain is automatically predicting the exact microsecond that next footstep is going to hit.
Even before the shoe touches the floor.
Exactly. Before it even happens.
It's like we have this internal metronome running constantly in the background, like it's trying to map out the future so we aren't constantly startled by normal sounds.
Yes. And music basically hijacks that exact same system. Every rhythm you hear creates a set of expectations. And psychologists use this term, prediction error, to describe what happens when reality doesn't actually match that internal metronome.
Okay, so I'm trying to map this onto how I usually listen to music. Like, if I put on a really basic mainstream pop song with a completely standard four-on-the-floor beat, my brain knows exactly what's coming, right?
Right, perfectly predictable.
Yeah, every single drum hit lands exactly where I expect it to. So I'm guessing that means my brain just gets bored and checks out.
It does, yeah. When music perfectly matches your expectations, there's no cognitive challenge, there's no new information to process, so your brain just goes on autopilot.
Makes sense.
But then, if you swing to the absolute opposite end of the spectrum, say, a highly experimental, chaotic, free jazz performance where nothing resolves, your brain becomes totally overwhelmed.
Because it can't find the pattern.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It experiences so many prediction errors that it can't find a pattern at all, so it just gives up and registers the whole thing as noise.
So it's basically a Goldilocks situation. Like, pop music is too cold and predictable, and chaotic music is too hot and structureless.
You got it. The sweet spot lies right in the middle. If a rhythm is just unpredictable enough to keep you guessing, but still holds a steady underlying pattern,
Yeah.
your brain experiences a prediction error that it can actually resolve.
Oh, so you figure out the puzzle in real time.
Yes, and when your brain successfully resolves that pattern, it releases dopamine.
Wow.
Yeah, you get a literal chemical reward for figuring out the rhythm.
And the research we have points out that Amapiano hits this neurological sweet spot continuously. Like, it just provides a constant drip of dopamine.
It really does.
But what I find fascinating is the actual mechanics of how it achieves that, which the notes say largely comes down to the tempo, the beats per minute, or BPM.
Yeah, the tempo is the foundational layer of this whole neurological hack. Most standard electronic dance music, like the kind you hear at massive festivals, that lives around 125 to 130 beats per minute.
Pretty fast.
Yeah, and techno pushes it even faster, sitting near like 135 or 140. Drum and bass is basically double that. but Amapiano drastically reduces the speed. It usually sits right around 110 to 115 BPM.
Which is a massive difference in energy. I mean, let's unpack this. It's the difference between sprinting on a treadmill just to keep up with the machine versus a really confident strut where you control the room.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. Like, when you're listening to 135 BPM techno, you are physically chasing the rhythm. It is exhausting. But with Amapiano, because it is slower and more patient, the rhythm sort of pulls your body.
It pulls you in, yeah.
And ironically, slowing the music down makes the groove feel so much deeper and heavier.
Well, by slowing the tempo down, the producers are literally creating more physical space inside the track.
Yeah.
There's more breathing room, more silence between the beats, and that builds a tremendous amount of anticipation.
So instead of just blasting you with speed.
Exactly. Instead of overwhelming your nervous system with sheer speed and force, the music creates tension through patience.
Which gives them this massive canvas to play with. Because the tempo is slower, they have room to introduce sounds that actually play tricks on the auditory cortex.
Oh, absolutely.
And obviously, you cannot talk about the sonic illusions of Amapiano without talking about its defining instrument, the log drum.
Oh man, the log drum. It is arguably the signature fingerprint of the entire genre.
For sure. It's this enormous, bouncing, woody bass sound. It has this incredible weight to it, like a massive boom. But according to the musical analysis, it's not actually functioning the way a drum normally functions.
Right, because in traditional pop or rock music, the kick drum is the anchor. It just marks time. It sits at the bottom of the track and tells you where the beat is.
Keeping everyone in line.
Exactly. But the log drum in Amapiano, it behaves like a lead melody. It constantly changes pitch. It slides up and down the musical scale while simultaneously keeping the rhythm.
So it's basically blurring the line between two totally different musical concepts.
And that ambiguity is incredibly stimulating to the human brain.
Yeah.
Your auditory cortex is in there trying to categorize the sound, asking, wait, is this the percussion or is this the harmony?
And the answer is just yes.
All right, it's both. By merging the rhythm section and the melody section into one massive pitch-shifting sound, it forces your brain to stay highly engaged. It is one of the few genres globally that makes the bass function as the lead instrument.
Wait, hold on, though. I need to push back on this a little bit, or at least ask a question that's been bugging me since I read through the notes.
Okay, lay it on me.
So I look at modern pop charts, right? And producers cram every single millisecond with noise, vocal chops, hi-hats, just walls of sound because our attention spans are notoriously short.
That's true.
But you're saying Amapiano thrives on a slower tempo and these weird, ambiguous bass lines. And when you really listen to these tracks, half the song is just empty space.
Huge gaps of silence.
Yeah, literal silence, minimal percussion, just tiny scattered piano phrases. So my question is, why doesn't the listener just get bored and skip the song? Like, shouldn't that sound unfinished to us?
Based on modern pop engineering, yeah, it totally should. But this is where the absolute genius of that empty space comes in. The experts in the notes highlight a psychological phenomenon at play here called perceptual completion.
Okay, perceptual completion. Let's break that down for everyone.
Sure. So because the track has so much empty space, and because your brain is that prediction machine desperately looking for patterns, your auditory cortex starts to actually complete the missing musical information.
Wait, really?
Yeah, your brain literally fills in sounds that aren't actually playing. It'll connect a tiny piano phrase to a log drum, hit across a huge gap of silence, creating a continuous rhythm in your mind that doesn't actually exist in the audio file.
That is amazing. It's like looking at a drawing of a triangle where the corners are erased, right?
Yes.
Your eyes still see the lines connecting the sides, even though the paper is blank. And Amapiano is doing that, but with sound. It gives you the corners, and your brain is forced to draw the musical lines between them.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
You are actively co-creating the track in your own mind. The silence isn't just empty air. It is a structural element.
It's part of the music.
Exactly. It's a canvas for your brain to project its expectations onto. When fans describe the genre as hypnotic, this is the biological reason why. You are subconsciously participating in the creation of the sound.
That is wild. I mean, the music is basically using silence as an instrument to force your brain to do the heavy lifting.
It really is.
But here's the thing, that intense internal brain activity, this constant cycle of predicting the beat, drawing those invisible triangles in your mind, resolving the prediction errors. Well, it doesn't just stay trapped inside your head.
Yeah.
It naturally spills over into the physical world.
It has to, because of how human beings process rhythm on an evolutionary level. The neurological research on beat perception shows that rhythm activates the motor regions of our brains long before conscious thought or language even kick in.
Oh, so we are reacting to the beat before we've even formulated the thought, hey, I am listening to a song.
Movement begins automatically, yeah. Researchers find that this motor cortex activation happens even when listeners are strapped into MRI machines and explicitly told to remain perfectly still.
You're kidding.
No, their motor regions are still firing wildly. Now, combine that hardwired biological reflex with the slow, patient, dopamine-releasing groove of Amapiano.
Right.
The rhythm develops so gradually, with tiny sonic changes accumulating over time.
So without you even noticing, your shoulders start shifting, then your feet start tapping. You are basically filling in the silence with your own body language.
Exactly.
And eventually, your whole body joins in.
The physical dance starts before the decision to dance is ever consciously made. It is essentially an involuntary physical takeover.
And this involuntary physical reflex, this absolute compulsion to move, is the exact mechanism for how the genre took over the globe. Because when you have millions of people who literally cannot stop their bodies from reacting to a track, you don't need $1 million marketing budget to make a song go viral.
You really don't.
But this actually brings us to a huge misconception in the current narrative. If you ask the average person today how Amapiano got so big, they will say, oh, it's a TikTok thing. The algorithm pushed it. People assume a tech algorithm basically manufactured this global explosion.
Which is just a massive oversimplification that ignores the actual history.
Right.
TikTok did not engineer this genre, nor did it create its initial popularity. What short-form video platforms did was simply accelerate a cultural movement that had been growing organically for years.
Yeah, because platforms like TikTok naturally reward music that has a recognizable groove, a clear rhythmic identity, and memorable dance movements. And Amapiano had all three embedded in its DNA already.
Oh, definitely.
So when something like the famous Water Challenge hit the internet, it just made the genre hyper-visible. The streaming numbers exploded, and suddenly, mainstream artists in Nigeria, the UK, and America were rushing to incorporate these rhythms into their own albums.
But the true roots of that viral spread go back years before global audiences or Silicon Valley algorithms ever noticed it. The sources detail how the genre originally spread through hyper-local, peer-to-peer networks in South Africa, specifically around Gauteng.
Right, and for those who might not know, Gauteng is the South African province that includes Johannesburg and Pretoria. It's this massive, densely populated urban and township hub.
Right. And in those communities, before streaming took over, the music spread via Bluetooth transfers between cheap cell phones.
Just beaming it to each other.
Exactly. Kids were sharing files in WhatsApp groups, local DJ mixes were being passed around on flash drives and played through taxi speakers.
It's basically an underground resistance movement of music, or like open source software development. There's no record label PR machine, just kids literally beaming tracks to each other's phones because they couldn't stop listening to it.
Yes. And the medium of how it was shared directly shaped how it sounded. That open-source, peer-to-peer spread is tied to perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Amapiano, its cultural evolution.
How so?
Well, this genre wasn't invented by a single person in a studio. There is no official founder. Even its exact birthplace is hotly debated among different townships around Gauteng.
Which raises a fascinating question. How does a genre even form without a set of rules or a specific creator saying, okay, guys, this is what our new sound is going to be?
It forms through cultural biology. It heavily resembles evolutionary natural selection.
Playing Darwin.
Kind of, yeah. Instead of top-down rules from a record label, you had thousands of local producers who were continuously modifying the style on basic laptops using software like FL Studio. They borrowed elements from deep house, from jazz, and heavily from local South African genres like Kwaito and Kokam.
Oh, yeah. And just to clarify those influences for you listening, Kwaito is that slower mid-tempo house style that came out of Johannesburg in the 90s, very heavy on the bass. And Grokam is that dark, heavy, broken beat sound from Durban. So these producers are taking pieces of all this rich musical history.
They were mutating the musical DNA in real time. Some producers emphasized the jazzy piano chords. Others pushed the log drum bass to be heavier so it would sound better on those local taxi speakers.
Tweaking it for their environment.
Exactly.
Mm.
Others reinvented the rhythmic structure entirely. These different musical mutations essentially competed in the local ecosystem. And the listeners, the people receiving those Bluetooth transfers and dancing in the local clubs, they acted as the natural selectors.
Survival of the funkiest.
Exactly that. The tracks that hit that neurological sweet spot, the ones that successfully use prediction error and perceptual completion to release the most dopamine, those were the tracks that survived, got copied, were modified again, and passed on.
That is so cool.
Genres evolve just like living organisms. Amapiano wasn't built to sell records. It was built iteratively by a community trying to make each other move.
Which explains why it feels so fundamentally different from other dance music. I mean, when you listen to traditional house music, it feels like it's driving you forward like an engine. Techno builds this intense, crushing pressure. Afrobeats puts a heavy emphasis on the vocal performance and the overarching melody.
Right.
But Amapiano creates an atmosphere. It builds immersion. You're not just simply hearing a beat on a track. You are entering a physical, sonic space that your brain has to actively navigate.
Yeah, it doesn't chase high-energy peaks the way festival EDM does.
Yeah.
It draws you in by creating a localized environment that your brain actively wants to participate in. It requires your brain's collaboration.
So let's synthesize this journey we've been on because I think it completely changes how you listen to the radio. We started by looking at a genre that most people just write off as a catchy, viral dance trend.
The TikTok fad.
Yeah. But what the sources reveal is that Amapiano isn't just about jazzy piano loops or heavy bass. It is an atmospheric masterclass that proves a fundamental truth about human biology. Our brains do not just passively listen to music.
We actively hunt for patterns.
We are desperate for patterns that are familiar enough for us to understand, but mysterious enough for us to explore and resolve.
And Amapiano found that perfect, precarious balance point. It relies on prediction error to give us a constant drip of dopamine. It uses a slower BPM to create physical tension rather than exhaustion.
Right, the strut instead of the sprint.
Exactly. It uses the pitch-shifting log drum to blur the lines between rhythm and melody, confusing and delighting the brain. And most brilliantly, it uses silence and empty space to trigger perceptual completion, forcing our own minds to literally finish the song for them.
It is a neurological masterclass developed organically by thousands of kids and producers who were just trying to make their communities dance.
Which leaves us with a really important implication, and I think it's something worth dwelling on long after this discussion.
What's that?
Well, we've just mapped out how a genre that organically developed in the local townships of South Africa can effortlessly hack the global human brain. It bypassed all the traditional gatekeepers, ignored all the established rules of pop music, and used silence, pitch-shifting drums, and prediction errors to take over dance floors from London to New York.
It proved that the multi-million-dollar music industry doesn't actually know everything about human behavior.
Exactly. It proved that entirely new musical mechanisms are still waiting to be found. So if this level of neurological impact can evolve organically in one specific region through flash drives and WhatsApp groups, what other undiscovered musical structures are out there right now?
Oh, wow.
What other rhythms currently being tweaked on a laptop in a local community somewhere in the world are perfectly engineered to unlock completely different neurological responses, emotions, or physical compulsions, or states of mind that we haven't even felt yet?
That is a wild thought to sit with, because we started this deep dive talking about that imaginary laboratory, the Silicon Valley Tech Campus or the massive London recording studio where we assume all global phenomena have to be engineered.
Right.
But the truth is, the most powerful laboratory on Earth isn't a boardroom. It's a community of people passing ideas back and forth, slowly perfecting a code that speaks directly to the human nervous system.
And we are only just beginning to understand the code they wrote.
So next time you hear that log drum sliding up the scale and you notice that massive gap of silence in the beat, well, pay attention to what your shoulders are doing. You might find you've already been hacked.